Nobody tells women this, but the things that actually melt a man's heart have nothing to do with being pretty, being funny, or being the coolest girl in the room. It's not your personality, it's not your body, it's not how interesting your life looks on Instagram. The women who genuinely move men, and I mean really move them, the kind where he's sitting alone later that night still thinking about her and he doesn't even fully know why, they do something completely different. Something so small and so simple that most women walk right past it every single day without realizing the power sitting right in their hands. They use gestures. Not big dramatic gestures, not grand romantic moves, small, quiet, specific gestures that hit a man somewhere deep inside him, somewhere he wasn't expecting to be hit. And once he feels that, he can't unfeel it. And here's the part that's going to surprise you. Most women never use these. Not because they're difficult, not because they require some special skill or some rare personality type, but simply because nobody ever told them these things matter this much. Nobody ever connected the dots between this small, natural, easy thing she did and the fact that he's been thinking about her for 3 days straight. Today, I'm going to connect those dots for you. I'm going to walk you through 7 of these gestures one by one, explain exactly why each one works on a man the way it does, and show you how to let them happen naturally so they actually land the way they're supposed to. By the end of this video, you're going to understand something about men that most women spend years trying to figure out and never quite get there. Before we get into it though, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn the bell on so you never miss what we put out here. This is a community built for women who want real, honest answers about men. Not the recycled, generic stuff you've already heard 100 times that never actually helped. And drop a comment right now telling me where in the world you're watching from. And tell me honestly, do you think a small gesture can actually move a man more than words ever could? Because I genuinely want to know what you think before we get into this. It helps me understand you better, and it helps this whole community grow. All right, let's get into it. Here's what most women don't fully understand about men. And I want to say up front, this isn't a criticism. Nobody really explains this properly, so it makes complete sense that most women are missing it. Men feel deeply. More deeply than they usually show. More deeply than they're often given credit for. A man doesn't fall for a woman because she said something clever at dinner or because she looked amazing that night. He falls because of how she made him feel in a specific moment. And most of the time, and this is the part that matters, that moment wasn't a big moment at all. It wasn't a long, deep conversation. It wasn't some perfectly timed thing she planned. It was something tiny, something she probably didn't even think twice about. A look she gave him, a touch that lasted 2 seconds, a pause where she didn't say anything and somehow that said everything. And his brain registered all of it before he even had one conscious thought about it. That's not a theory. That's just how human beings are built. We are wired to pick up on signals way faster than our thinking mind can process. Scientists call it the body's threat and reward detection system. It's always running in the background, reading the room, reading the person in front of you, reading the energy coming off them. So by the time a man consciously thinks, there's something about her I really can't explain, his nervous system already made that call 5 or 10 minutes ago, based on something small, based on something quiet, based on one of these 7 things we're about to talk about. And that's exactly why these gestures are so powerful. They don't go through his thinking brain first. They go straight to how he feels. And feeling is what changes everything. The first gesture, the slow smile. Not a big, excited smile, not the wide, polished smile you put on for a photo, not the friendly social smile you give the cashier at the supermarket. A slow one. The kind that starts somewhere in her eyes before her mouth even moves. The kind that looks like it surprised her a little, like something he said or did got to her in a real way and she couldn't help it. Here's why this one lands so differently than anything she could say. Men are watching women's faces more than women realize. He's always checking, always reading. Is she actually enjoying this, or is she just being polite? Is she actually happy to be here with me right now, or is part of her somewhere else? Is what I'm saying actually landing, or is she just nodding? And a big wide smile gives him no real information, because big wide smiles are everywhere. They're easy to produce. They're easy to perform. He's seen thousands of them, and they don't tell him anything real. But a slow smile, the kind that takes a beat to show up, the kind that looks like she wasn't planning on it and it came anyway, that one he believes. That one his brain registers as real, because it looks uncontrolled, because real reactions are uncontrolled. And when a man sees that specific smile on a woman's face in response to something he said or did, something happens inside him that's hard to put into words, but very easy to feel. It's warm. It pulls him in. It makes him want to be the reason she smiles like that again. It makes him think about what he did that caused it and want to do it again. And here's the beautiful thing about this gesture. You genuinely cannot fake it in a way that works. If you try to perform a slow smile, it just looks weird. It looks like you're doing a face. The only way it happens naturally is if you're actually present with him, actually listening, actually in the moment and not in your head. Because when you're really there, when you're genuinely paying attention and something he says actually gets to you, that smile shows up on its own. You don't have to think about it. And when it does, trust me, he notices. He might not say anything. He might not even fully register it consciously. But somewhere in him, he felt it. And he's going to be thinking about that smile later when he's alone and wondering what it means that he can't stop thinking about it. The second gesture, leaning in when he talks. Not dramatically, not in an obvious look how interested I am kind of way, just a small, natural shift forward with your body when he's saying something. When he's in the middle of a story, when he's explaining something he cares about, when he's sharing something personal, you lean in just a little. Your body moves closer without making a big production of it, just slightly. Naturally, like gravity is pulling you toward what he's saying. This one works because of what it communicates without a single word being spoken. When your body moves towards someone while they're talking, you are telling them something that is incredibly difficult to fake and incredibly powerful to receive. You are saying, I am interested. What you're saying matters enough to me that I want to be physically closer to it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not half here. I am here. And think about how rare that actually is in the world we live in right now. Most conversations, even between people who genuinely like each other, have someone who's half present, someone who's nodding but already forming their next sentence, someone whose eyes are there but whose attention drifted 3 seconds ago. People are distracted. People are in their heads. People are managing 20 things at once, even when they're sitting still. So when a woman leans in, when her body actually physically moves toward him because she's genuinely pulled in by what he's saying, his nervous system picks that up immediately and clearly. She wants to be closer to me. She's actually listening. She's not performing listening. She's actually doing it. And that feeling of being genuinely heard by someone, of having your words actually land somewhere in another person and matter to them, is one of the most powerful feelings one human being can give another. Men don't get that enough. Most men spend a lot of their lives feeling like they're talking, but not really being heard. So when a woman gives him that, Naturally, without making it a big moment, something in him connects that feeling of being truly heard to her specifically. And he starts wanting more of it. He starts wanting more of her. Not because she did anything dramatic, just because she leaned in. The third gesture, saying his name. Just using his name naturally in conversation once in a while. Not constantly, not in a way that sounds rehearsed or salesy. Just every now and then when it fits naturally into what she's saying. That actually makes a lot of sense, Jake. I get exactly what you mean, Jake. Wait, how did that end up going for you, Jake? Something that simple. Something that small. And here's the psychology behind why this one is so quietly powerful. A person's own name is the most personally significant sound they will ever hear. This has been studied and documented for a long time in psychology. When you hear your own name, your brain responds differently than it does to any other word. It's immediate, it's personal, it cuts straight through whatever else is happening and lands directly on you as a specific individual. So when a woman uses a man's name in conversation, not in a weird over-the-top way, just naturally, warmly, like it belongs right there in the sentence, he feels it. He might not be able to explain what he felt or why. He just knows that something about talking to her feels different from talking to other people. He feels like she's actually talking to him, not just making conversation, not just filling time, talking to him specifically, like he's a real specific person to her and not just a guy who happens to be sitting across from her. And in a world where most interactions feel surface level and generic and like you could swap one person out for another and nothing would change, that feeling of being seen as a specific, real, individual person is genuinely rare. It makes him feel like he matters to her. And a man who feels like he genuinely matters to the woman he's drawn to, that man is already halfway gone. He's already thinking about her differently and he probably hasn't even figured out why yet. The fourth gesture, remembering something small he mentioned once. Something he said casually, probably in passing, probably not even thinking she was really paying attention. And then later, could be later that same evening, could be the next time they talk, she brings it up. Not in a big deal way, not I wrote down everything you said, just a small, easy, natural reference. Wait, didn't you say your brother is the funny one in your family? Or how did that work thing end up going? Did it work out the way you hoped? Something that shows his words actually stayed with her. Something that shows she wasn't just waiting for her turn to talk. She was actually there, actually listening, and what he said actually went somewhere inside her and stayed. This might honestly be the most underrated gesture on this entire list, because what it tells him isn't just that she has a good memory. What it tells him is that he mattered enough to remember. That what he said wasn't background noise. That he wasn't just another conversation she had that day that blurred into all the others. She remembered him specifically. And for a man, that is deeply moving in a way that's hard to fully articulate. Here's something true about men that doesn't get talked about enough. Men share things carefully. Even the ones who seem open and easy to talk to. When a man mentions something personal in conversation, even if it sounds casual, even if he throws it out there like it's nothing, there's a quiet part of him watching to see where it lands. Does she care? Did she actually hear that? Does it matter to her at all? And when she remembers it later and brings it up, not to make a big thing of it, just naturally, he gets his answer. She heard me. She remembered me. I mattered enough for that. And that answer does something to him that no amount of chemistry or physical attraction can do on its own. It builds trust. Real trust. The kind that makes a man start thinking about a woman not just as someone fun to be around, but as someone he actually wants to keep in his life. The fifth gesture, a light touch and then pulling back. A brief, gentle touch on his arm when something is funny. A quick touch on his hand when she's making a point about something. Natural, easy, like it just happened because the moment felt warm. And then she moves on. No lingering, no big moment built around it, no checking his face to see how he reacted, just a light touch, and then it's gone. And here's exactly why that specific combination of touch and pulling back works the way it does. Touch is one of the most direct ways human beings communicate with each other. It skips the thinking brain almost entirely and goes straight to the feeling brain. A light touch from someone you're drawn to releases something in your nervous system. Warmth, connection, a kind of aliveness that words simply can't produce no matter how good the words are. So the touch itself is already powerful, but the pulling back, that's where the real pull comes from. Because she touched him and then just moved on. Like it was easy, like she was comfortable, like it was the most natural thing. She didn't linger and make it weird. She didn't look at him afterward to gauge his reaction. She just touched him warmly, naturally, and kept going. And now he's sitting there and he's aware. He's aware of his arm. He's aware of the exact spot she touched. He's aware that the warmth of it is gone now, and there's a part of him that wants it back. He's more aware of her now, more aware of the space between them, more aware of the fact that he'd like to close that space. And she created all of that with one small, easy, completely natural moment of touch. That's how quietly powerful this gesture is when it happens in the right moment. The sixth gesture, being okay with silence. Not rushing to fill every quiet moment that comes up. When there's a natural pause in the conversation, just letting it be there. Sitting in it comfortably. Not looking around awkwardly, not jumping in with something just to break the quiet, just being relaxed in the pause, like she doesn't need anything to be happening in order to feel okay. This one is genuinely rare. Most people, not just women, most people in general, are deeply uncomfortable with silence in social situations. Silence feels like something went wrong. It feels like she's boring him. It feels like she needs to say something smart or funny right now, or the whole thing is going to fall apart. So she talks, and she talks, and she fills every quiet moment with words just to keep it moving, because the silence feels dangerous. But here's what actually happens when a woman is comfortable with silence around a man. He exhales. Not literally maybe, but internally he relaxes in a deep way because she just took all the pressure off. She's not performing. She's not anxious. She's not trying to manage the energy of the whole interaction. She's just there with him, comfortable, relaxed, like she's genuinely okay with however this moment goes. And that is extraordinarily attractive to a man. Not in a surface kind of way, in a deep, real kind of way. Because what her comfort in silence tells him is that she doesn't need him to entertain her constantly. She doesn't need noise to feel safe. She's secure enough in herself that she can just sit in a quiet moment with another person and be completely fine. And when a man feels that kind of calm coming off a woman, he relaxes too. He stops performing. He stops worrying about keeping the energy up. And in that quiet space, something real starts to happen between them. An actual connection. The unspoken kind. The kind that words would actually interrupt. And that kind of connection, the kind that lives in the silence between two people, is the kind that stays with him long after the night is over. The seventh gesture, and this is the one most women would never guess, looking at him like she's proud of him. Not in a patronizing way, not in a good job little buddy way, just genuine, quiet pride when he handles something well. When he says something genuinely smart or funny or kind, when he does something that takes real effort or real character, she looks at him just for a moment, just in her eyes, with an expression that says, I see you, I see what you just did, and I think you're something. Nothing said out loud, nothing made into a big moment, just that look, just for a second, and then it passes. Here's why this one moves a man more deeply than almost anything else on this list. Underneath all the confidence and the independence and the "I'm fine, I've got it handled" energy that most men walk around with every day, there is something quiet in them that simply wants to know that a woman they care about genuinely sees them. Not just what they do for her, not just the role they play, but actually sees who they are, what they're made of, what kind of person they are when things get real. And when a woman looks at him with that expression, that quiet, genuine, unperformed look of pride, she tells him all of that without a single word. She says, I notice you. I see what you're doing. I think you're good. And a man who receives that from a woman he's drawn to, that man is moved in the truest, deepest sense of that word. Not excited moved, not butterflies moved in the way that builds something real and lasting, moved in the way that makes him feel, without even fully consciously understanding it, that this woman is different, that there's something here worth protecting, worth showing up for, worth being his best self around, because she already sees him that way. And he doesn't want to let that down. Now, here's what I really want you to take away from everything we talked about today. These 7 gestures are not techniques. They're not calculated moves you run on a man to get a specific result out of him. Because if you do any of these things from a place of strategy, if you're performing them rather than actually feeling them, he will feel it. Men are far more perceptive than most people give them credit for. He will sense the performance underneath. He will feel the gap between what you're showing and what's actually there. And the moment he feels that gap, everything closes. The whole thing collapses. So the only way any of this actually works, the only way these gestures carry real weight and land the way they're supposed to, is when they come from genuine presence, real interest, actual attention. Which means the real shift here isn't about learning 7 new behaviors to add to your routine. The real shift is about deciding to actually show up fully when you're with him, to actually listen instead of managing how you're coming across, to actually be in the moment instead of running calculations in your head about how it's going. When you make that shift, when you're just fully present and genuinely there, these gestures happen on their own. You lean in because you're actually interested. The slow smile shows up because something he said actually got to you. You touch his arm because the moment feels warm and real and your body just responds to that. You use his name because you're genuinely talking to him and not just talking. And that's when it lands. That's when something shifts in him. That's when he goes home that night thinking about you and can't quite figure out why and doesn't really want to stop. The difference between a woman who gets a man's attention and a woman who gets his heart, that's what you learned today. Attention is easy. Attention is everywhere. But his heart, that takes presence. That takes warmth. That takes the kind of small, real, quiet things that most people are too distracted or too anxious or too deep in their own head to actually do naturally. You now know what those things are. The slow smile, leaning in when he talks, saying his name, remembering the small things he mentioned, the light touch and the natural pullback, being okay with silence, and looking at him like you're genuinely proud of him. 7 things, none of them hard, none of them fake, all of them real, and all of them more powerful than anything you could plan or script or rehearse. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me which one of these 7 gestures felt most natural to you. Which one do you think you're already doing without even realizing it? And which one are you going to start being more intentional about? I read everything down there and I genuinely want to know. If this video hit you in a real way today, share it with a woman in your life who needs to hear this. Give it a like, subscribe to the channel, turn the bell on, because we have so much more coming that you really don't want to miss. Thank you so much for being here. It genuinely means a lot. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.